My name is Herr. I'm VP of Sales for Panzura. And what I'm going to talk to you today is a little bit about Panzura. So my presentation is going to be slightly different. We don't make BIM apps. What we do is we make BIM applications work across great geography. So the people who, what we're really focused on in Panzura is optimizing people's, trying to allow you to maximize the utilization of the software tools that you're seeing today and the people that are actually running them. So today's organization is distributed. And distributed organizations, in order for them to work well, either people have to all be co-located in one location so they can share information amongst themselves. And that way collaboration works fine. But when you have a distributed organization where people need to share information across different geographies, what happens is the tools and the IT systems that people are using today aren't really set up to actually optimize that work. So what happens is the tools are actually they're not optimized to work across wide area networks or great distances. So today's solutions, what do people do? They typically either they centralize their data. Now it's easy for IT to manage it, or they start distributing the data, replicating it across all of their sites, and now it becomes kind of a nightmare to manage. And you have this whole integration process that has to happen with your data. And by the way, most of you probably are doing one or both of those. But, I'm sorry. Let's see, yeah, I was going to say most of you are probably doing a combination of both of these in your organization. So the real fix is what you want to be able to do is to centralize all your storage, right? So take all your information and put it in one location and not have to replicate it anywhere. So hey, you want to have everybody using the same information and you want it to be simple to manage, you want it to be easy to protect, right? And you want it to work in a way that you're accustomed to having it work. But you have a problem when you centralize information, and the problem is, what about all these people that need to access that information from remote sites? Their productivity goes down because they're waiting for things to happen. And at Panzura, what we really have done is we've developed a BIM-friendly file system. And what that really means is that we allow you to centralize your data and give everybody a view of the exact same data, regardless of where you're at. They can be in the same office, they can be on a different continent. So everybody sees the same data, everybody has the same access to the same data, and everybody has performance as if you're all sitting in the same office. Now, let me take you through a couple of examples of how some of our customers use this technology. So this is actually a customer of ours. It's CNS Systems out of Syracuse, New York. This was the actual Syracuse airport that they were designing. It's an average size BIM model. It's 170 megabytes big. And they had people working in multiple cities, but they basically was split between two cities. There was a place in Florida and a place in New York, a team of people that were working on this project. The data was centralized in New York. And if you look at the distance between New York and Florida, you have about a 60 millisecond latency on accessing data. What was happening is the people that were actually sitting in Florida started to complain because every time they wanted to save information or sync sync to central, they were using Revit. They wanted to sync their changes into the model. What would end up happening is it would take them 15, 20 minutes to sync. And many times when they had multiple people syncing at the same time, the application would halt, install, and they'd get error messages and they'd have to come back and resync. And it got to be so frustrating for them that they actually picked up the engineering team in Florida, they flew them to New York, and they kept them there for 3 months to finish the project. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced anything like that. But we met Eric, and we came along and we told him our story. And Eric says, wow, he says, if you can do this, basically you're going to solve a problem in this industry that I've been trying to solve for 5 years. And so what we did was we actually took two of our Panzura devices. We put one in Florida and one in Syracuse. We took that 170 megabyte model and we loaded it into a central repository of a central repository. What ended up happening, all of a sudden, the people in Florida and the people in New York were actually able to use the information. So it worked just as efficiently as when they had everybody sitting in the same office. And this almost sounds too good to be true. Most people that we sell to go, this can't be, this can't be, I don't believe you. How does it work? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of run through a very quick explanation of how we work. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. But the real reason or the impetus for CNS to move in this direction was that they wanted to maximize the use of their people and the tools that they had bought. They have a gentleman over there by the name of Eric Wing, and he writes books on Revit. And basically, I had a conversation with Eric, and he told me, he says, look, your product's crazy fast, whether or not I'm working on a project by myself in the office, whether I'm sharing, working on this project with 6 people in 6 different offices. So this is really the secret sauce on how we work and why, we can do things that other people can't do. So if you can imagine that you have a project and you have people working in 3 locations, let's say New York, London, and Paris. And the engineer or the architect in New York is, I'm going to kind of use a Revit example because that was like the last one. He was working on his model, and he decides to actually he's creating information or data as he's working. And what ends up happening is on any system, okay, in any file system, what ends up happening is there's 2 components. There's metadata and data, and I'm not going to go into this a lot, but metadata basically is just the information about the data. So the creation time, who's got permissions to look at it, when was it last modified, all the kinds of things that you need to know in order to collaborate and share your information. So what happens now is the engineer is sitting over in New York. He's working on some data, and he now is going to do a save. What we do at Panzura that's very unique is we separate the metadata and the data, and we ship that metadata, which is very, very small compared to the data. We ship it in real time to all the other people that are working on the project. All of a sudden, these other offices know that there's new information. And in the background, what happens is that information is sent to the central repository, and then it is pushed out in near real time to all the other locations. So the engineer that's working in London, in this case, he hasn't synced to central yet, but a sync to central, what it does is it literally, it syncs your data, meaning it goes in and writes your data and then pulls all the changes that everybody else has made. Well, the interesting point here is that now when that engineer in London actually goes to do his sync to central, all the changed data from all the other users are already there. So his sync now happens in 8 seconds. He doesn't have to wait and pull all this information back. So this is the secret sauce on how we work. So here's some of our customers. We're shipping about 100 units a month right now into the AEC space. And we have customers in Canada up here like EXP, Woodard & Kern, WSP Genevar just became a customer this week. And all of these customers, what I've talked to you about today is, how all of these customers are really solving a workflow problem. But one of the things that's really amazing is none of these customers actually paid for their, for the technology that they bought from us out of a project budget. It all came out of an IT budget. So there's a huge cost savings also with the Panzura solution on the IT side. So the combination of the increase in productivity of the end users, the better utilization of the software, and the IT savings, what happens is these products pay for themselves in months, not years, in weeks to months, and not, months to years. So if you have any questions, we're next door. You can come talk to us, and thank you for your time.